Oh, let's see. There we go. Uh, Technical difficulties get started. It's par for the course, but I think we have done it. Let me see here. Try to pop out chat. Oh, we're live. Pop this out. Go. What happens? Live stream. Do. Right. Oh, you know what? Crunched over. Oh, what happened there? That's a little. Right. Got here. Properly. That is the question. Have proper stream going on. Do? Right. Like it's streaming. Look. Oh, you know what? Is marked as private. Huh. 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 And we're live again. For the second time, at least for me anyways. Where's my microphone? There we go. Let's get that all situated. I think we will be good. Huh. That's pretty funny. So we got here. Oh, we got a couple people bouncing in. And I'll leave it open. Sorry for the delay as you come in to the chat here. It was posted as private. So I'll just give it a minute. Let people start popping into the chat. Let me make sure it's... let's see. It's now public. See if that is working. All saved. Should be working. See what happened online. On here at the top of the screen. I didn't even notice that. Oh, much better. All right, what's going on here? Still not coming through. All right, I believe it is working now. Let's see here. All right, it's actually showing up live. I started the stream as private, so I kind of messed that up, and I started talking, and that didn't really work out as planned. So let me just give it a minute. I need to put this out. See if I can get this out on Twitter real quick. See what we got here. I wonder what's going on with this. All right, got a couple of people coming in. My watch change. All right, I think that's coming through correctly. I'll give it a minute here. Have to. Can't tell if it's working properly or not. Doesn't look like it's working properly. I don't know why. Going through. Anybody logging in, if you can indicate. Might have to stop this again. Let me log in here and see if it's running, but I can't tell if it's running properly or not. This is really crazy. All right, let me close this. Close out of that. There we go. All right, I think I got it working now. Oh man, I started streaming under private, and I was talking. Apparently, I was talking to myself. So, and then I realized that I was streaming and talking to myself. So all is good now. All is good in the world of video streaming on YouTube. I want to thank everybody for joining tonight after watching hours and hours of YouTube streams. So it's been streaming. No, actually, I started another segment before that, and then I realized that it was set up under private. So I stopped the stream, XRP Minute, and I started again. And then I'm looking at. I tried to pull up the stream on my phone and realized that I was streaming under private originally. So anyhow, this has been, you know what, every single night is absolutely awesome. So I'm so glad you guys have joined in. We've got XRP Minute so far, XRP Angel Connie, Dan, Anthony King, what's up, Jana Thompson. Let's see. So anyhow, yeah, there's so much going on. And I know it's all consuming because we can go from stream to stream. I feel like it's crazy because we can watch a DNI stream anyhow at night, wrap this up, wake up early in the morning, and DNI still streaming. So, and then trying to catch up with everything. So I've got my favorites that I like tuning into, but really what does it and was really motivational is seeing everybody within the community getting together, sharing information, and really jumping into the different streams that are available. So, and there are so many different options out there. And tonight, noticing that we had Brad Kim's, or you know, he was streaming, and his stream. He had young Aiden on his stream, and that to me is just super, super impressive. And it's so meaningful when you see somebody that is a 14-year-old out there streaming on YouTube. Now, obviously, a 14-year-old on YouTube, you know, isn't unique because you have tons of 14-year-olds out there streaming on YouTube. What is unique, however, is a 14-year-old that's streaming on YouTube that has nothing whatsoever to do with pranks and gaming. And here's Aiden out there streaming all about cryptocurrency, digital assets, XRP, and that, you know, imagine when you were 14 years old, what you were doing, and if you had access to YouTube streaming, you know, would you be on the gaming prank side, or would you be on the I want to talk about investing in digital assets side? So, you know, I thought that was great to see, you know, to see him, you know, talking, to see him invited on a show, and you know, seeing him involved with the adult streamers. And it's awesome. And I can tell you, you know, I was with a group years ago, and we had a high school kid showed up with his dad to this group, and we basically adopted him into the group. And I saw him recently, years later, and you know, and I had a chance to talk to him. He's all grown up now, and he's an attorney living in New York City, and it was just super impressive, you know, to see how he developed into everything. What's up, Rain? Good to see you here. Mama Lacey, thanks for joining in. So, you know, so here we have Aiden, again, 14 years old, and it's phenomenal how he's really being, you know, adopted into this community. He obviously has an amazing dad that really pushed him and motivated him into getting into streaming on YouTube and talking about his passion. It was interesting the other day, you know, I was talking about, you know, passion. Again, you think back to, you know, to when you were younger, and you think about what were you passionate about in your single digits. You know, when you were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You know, what were you passionate about when you entered into your double digits, into your teens? And did that passion follow through with you, you know, all the way through into your 20s and 30s and onwards into life, depending on how old you were or are? You know, I think it's amazing, you know. And so there's obviously a lot of transitions that people make in life. But Annalise, hey, welcome to the live stream. Glad that you made it on. So I just wanted to mention that, and then to jump into DNI's stream and seeing everybody chatting and really getting along in this community is phenomenal. So I wanted to, you know, get some feedback from you guys a little bit and kind of take off a little bit. Hey, Mofo, how you doing? Good to see you on. Glad you could join us. Wanted to pick up a little bit on what DNI had been talking about. You know what, Anthony? That's exactly right. XRP is the new lemonade stand. Digital asset investing. I think it's really XRP. It's digital assets, and it's getting onto YouTube and talking about it for these kids if they can truly monetize it. And you see these kids, that, you know, it's almost like you know, second nature for them to get onto tablets and on computers, and with a little prompting and motivation, a little bit of guidance from the adults, they'll actually get in and really reflect on what they're passionate about, and let them take it the rest of the way, as long as they're using it for good and not for bad. But that's such a great idea. So just wanted to get some feedback. If you guys want to give feedback on this, that's all right. Has to do with oh, I appreciate that, Annalise. Want to oh, Edward, what's going on? Thanks for joining on. So DNI was talking about the possibility of the US dollar displacing or being displaced as a as a global reserve currency, or as the predominant currency for trade. Now, we brought up a little bit about China and Russia. You know, obviously they have ulterior motives. We entered into, a number of years ago, we went from multi-hegemonic state players, meaning leaders in the world, when we had the Soviet Union, with the United States, really as a balancing act. Obviously, after the fall of the Soviet Union, the U.S. became the sole hegemonic superpower in the world, and really had to lead by example. I always believe it's good when there's a positive counterbalance when we talk about competition. Well, here we have, and this is something that DNI was talking about. I just wanted to, you know, kind of take it a little bit further in depth. Yo, Johnny Bull XRP, man, what's up? Glad you joined on to the live stream. We've got a couple people on to point out, just starting from the list here. Auburn Rain live streams or makes videos as well. Johnny Bull XRP is someone that I recently met online, jumping into his live stream. He live streams about TA on XRP, on digital assets. Originally found him through, I believe it was on DLive, and then jumped into the YouTube, and then joined to subscribe to his channel. He checked out my channel, and this is his first time on the live stream. Then, of course, we've got XRP Minute with us as well. Don't have to, well, for those of you that know him, for those of you that don't know XRP Minute yet, Johnny Bull, I don't know if you know him. There's others. I don't necessarily recognize everybody's names on here, but definitely check out the channels. XRP Minute has been doing some phenomenal stuff, live streaming as well, Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, 10 p.m. And he also does the XRP Minute. He had a great one on with the hologram. I like that one today, Chip. That was a great video. So anyhow, so getting into USD potentially being displaced again as a global reserve currency. Now, if you have China and Russia, and this is something that DNI had talked about, really has that ulterior motive. So if, as Russia has stated and as China has insinuated for, that they're really wanting to change that relationship. Obviously, the Chinese yuan or the Russian ruble, neither one of them are stable currencies. Nothing to fear on the global front from their currencies. There's always monetary manipulation on the back end. So we don't see the possibility or potential, especially in this day and age, of either the Chinese currency or the Russian currency being involved from a trade perspective. But that does leave open the question, and this is what D and I had been talking about, and we kind of pushed that a little bit, is to then determine, is it possible to have a decentralized digital asset that isn't controlled or manipulated by a state actor as a viable option for a replacement of the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency or as the predominant currency for trade? And I think that's the big open question. The other thing then goes for, as it does for China and Russia, the IMF and any UN-sponsored movement. Do they have an ulterior motivation for attempting to displace the U.S. dollar? And I think that's an important question for us all to ask and to discuss a little bit more in depth, as we think about it. So let me just jump up here. There were a couple statements that I wanted to jump in on here. Hang on a second. I got to scroll back up. Dan, I appreciate that. The question about Bush and the New World Order, and that's something that's always bothered me, over the years, ever since he made that statement, and it kind of stuck with me, and it's something that still bothers me, mainly because a New World Order, and we talk about a one world currency meaning that there is another entity someplace that's still manipulating and controlling that one world currency. And so I definitely have an issue with that. Now, if it's a digital asset, if we're talking about a trade currency, then that's a different scenario. But if we're talking about a global currency, that takes away the country right, the national rights and independence of a nation state. And so it impacts sovereignty, it impacts freedom, but it then makes your nation and the people within that nation susceptible again to outside influences. And so there's a lot of dangers that lurk in the dark when we talk about a one world currency. If it's a decentralized in nature, then there's that possibility that you're not going to have the outside influences. Now, Bitcoin, as an example, why would Bitcoin not necessarily then be able to be elevated to the status of a currency that could be used on a global scale? Mainly because, as some of the reports have come out, that a majority of the mining of the Bitcoin, and therefore a majority of the control of the Bitcoin, is in the hands of entities within China. And so that then becomes problematic. If you have a currency like XRP, can you make the argument that a certain percentage is being held by Ripple? Does that then complicate things? Although going into it that you have within the consensus, within the rules, you have a large percentage of those holdings that are held in escrow, and exactly what's being released on a monthly basis, and exactly what the rules are, and the only way to change those rules is through consensus of the validators. So until unless you can get that consensus, those rules aren't going to be changed. So at the maximum, you're going to have a release of 1 billion per month. and whatever's used is used. So that's at the worst case scenario, the maximum. Now, obviously, they're not always utilizing that amount, but if they did, you know what the impact on the global stage would be. And I'm saying if XRP is then going to be used in some form of a global currency, or utilized, as DNI was talking about, as part of the ESDR. So those are just some thoughts that were rattling around in my head as we're going through that. Let's see, oh, that's pretty cool. Any word on an East Coast meetup? That would be pretty cool. Southeast, Northeast. Let's see here. Global reset coming after the next election. It's going to be interesting, Rain. If we look at what the possibility is for a global reset, and it's a long time coming, economically speaking. Something's got to give. We can't continue living on debt, and that's every country in the world. And things are a little bit out of whack, so that's got to be pulled in. Everything's got to be reined in a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let me see here. Let me keep scrolling down. I kind of got away with things. Okay, Johnny Bull XRP. What are your thoughts on all the FUD lately with XRP and Schwartz, and just the target FUD as of recent? I think when we talk about FUD, we talk about you're talking about media that maybe they don't have anything else to talk about. Maybe there's, again, you have entities out there with an ulterior motivation as to why they're bad mouthing. There's so many different reasons. FUD has come in multiple different forms, and we talk about it. I've talked about it many times. Whether it's in digital assets, whether it's in regular stocks. You're going to see FUD being spread by those that are attempting to manipulate it in some fashion. So if you have entities out there that are spreading FUD about Ripple, if they're spreading FUD about XRP, we should look at the source that it's coming from. Are they tied in some shape or form to a banking organization that might have some negative feelings towards Ripple? If you think about a JP Morgan or other, is it coming from just a media source? We've seen Forbes writing a lot of negative pieces when it comes to Ripple and XRP, and a lot of it comes from the fact that they're just trying to make themselves relevant and talk about a subject that obviously they don't know a lot about, or they're you see a lot of the Bitcoin maximalists that want to come out and again spread their negativity. So let me keep coming down here. Let's see. Sorry, and then all right, I kind of got a little bit behind here. 80%. This is from Auburn Rain. 80% Bitcoin and Ethereum controlled by China is not good. Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely a problem. That's definitely problematic. Wildstar finally made it. That's awesome, Wildstar. I'm glad you made it on the live stream. Good to see you here. Miyagi, glad that you made it on. DNI, what's up, man? Glad that you made it on here. That's awesome. So here we go. Let's see. Sorry, kind of got way out of whack here. Too far up on the stream. There we go. All right, here we go. Awesome. All right, so anyhow, so let me move into another topic here. I think this is amazing, but before that, I think everybody on here already knows DNI. If you don't know DNI, definitely go check them out. Awesome live stream again tonight, DNI. Loved it, and look forward to having many more chats with you on my stream, your stream. And it would be awesome if we can get together and we get Chip, you, I, and myself, and maybe a couple others. We can switch off and join each other on the live streams. That'd be awesome. I'd love to try to get something set up and see how we can continue really the deep dives. I think it's fantastic. Thanks for that. All right. Here we go. All right. See, it threw me off. All right. News. So this is from a news perspective. And this is Robinhood. I don't know how many of you guys know about Robinhood, and Rain also. Exactly. Rain would be awesome. How many of you guys use Robinhood? Show of hands on that. I don't know if you guys know Robinhood, have used Robinhood. But anyhow, so Robinhood is something that I got into using. I've used a lot of different trading platforms, and I found that I'm always trying to simplify, make it as easy as possible. So Robinhood, discovered Robinhood. That's awesome. XRP Carolina. So I've used the Robinhood mainly again from simplicity. It's an easy trade platform. It doesn't have any type of technical analysis, really no research whatsoever. Had been using it for trading stock. It almost no cost whatsoever. If you pay, I think $6 a month, it's unlimited trading with no cost, buy or sell. So it's an easy buy sell if you're doing small quantities, larger quantities. That's funny, the chip. I also bought Dogecoin on Robinhood. Did pretty well with it when I sold it too. But anyhow, my point on Robinhood, what's interesting about it, and we talked about this before, the major exchanges moving into the banking realm, and we talked about, are banks going to move into the digital asset space, or are digital assets going to move into the banking space? So Oz, man, what's up? Glad that you're on. That's awesome. If you guys don't know Oz Crypto, he's got one of the most amazing channels. Love tuning in. I walk early in the morning, so with my dog, and normally I listen to Oz, try to catch up with what he's done. And now lately DNI's been streaming early in the morning, so I try to bounce back and forth. I'll log into Eddie's channel. There's so many great things to log into. I only have an X amount of time before it's time to work out. But that's awesome, man. I'm glad that you're on, dude. So anyhow, so Robinhood has let me see, where did I put it? They just applied for a charter, and Robinhood isn't necessarily the digital asset exchange. It's also not a custody. It's kind of interesting if you work with yeah, that's all. That'd be awesome, Oz. But with Robinhood, if you're buying digital assets with Robinhood, you actually, and what's interesting about it, I think about, and we've all talked about mainstream adoption. Mainstream adoption is going to require the ease of use of digital assets. Sergio, welcome from Brazil. What part of Brazil, man? I've been down in that area to Sao Paulo. But so when you buy digital assets on Robinhood, again, you're not buying it as a customer. You actually don't own the digital asset. I don't even know if you can transfer the digital asset outside of Robinhood. Robinhood essentially buys the digital asset for you, holds it for you, and that's really the end of it. So that's awesome, man. You're in Sao Paulo. That's awesome. So I don't know if Robinhood really then would classify as a traditional exchange, but yes, I do. Oz, I do. Yep. Not on the computer though. I'm gonna have to add it on there. Anyhow, not on this computer. But anyhow, so Robinhood just applied for a charter to become a traditional or offer traditional banking services. They attempted to do this before. The reason why I bring this up and the reason why it's important, again, is the fact that we're seeing this movement from the fintechs, slowly migrating and moving into the banking space. Banks are attempting to move into the digital asset space. But the question, again, is, which one is going to happen first? If they're going to happen simultaneously, are the banks going to be able to keep up? Banks are notorious for being slow, for being relatively, I don't want to say inefficient overall as their own, through the corporate structure in terms of decision making. I'm not saying that they're losing your money or you can't get your money out, not that kind of inefficiency, but just overall size, decision, mobility. And so we're seeing on the digital asset exchange side, as they are applying to become banks, they're much more readily able to move into the banking space because they're basically already there. If you think about an Uphold, they're basically a bank already. So if you can put euros, you can put pretty much any global currency into an Uphold. But this is an important step. The fact that, and this came out April 19th, and so they're claiming it as a stock and crypto trading platform. And again, Robinhood, you can trade Dogecoin, XRP, Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, and Bitcoin. I think that's it. I'm not sure if you can do any others. But the fact that they're applying it for a charter to become a bank is really moving things in a certain direction relatively quickly. We see Coinbase talking about doing the same thing. We see that Uphold again talking about the same thing. So I think it's really a very interesting dynamic to see that happen. Now, if we go from where we're talking about Robinhood, now let's move over to Coinbase, and this is really significant as well. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. So we're talking about expansion, and we're talking about relative rapid expansion. So let me see if you guys have any comments here before I jump into that. Let's see here. Sorry about that. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. Oz, you were having technical. Man, there's always always technical issues with this stuff lately. I don't know what it is. Yeah, see that, Johnny? Yeah, you don't hold the coins. You don't hold them. You don't own them. They basically own your coins. From a mainstream perspective, it makes people comfortable. Maybe it makes sense as long as they're FDIC insured as well, up to $250,000. But that was one of the issues with Robinhood as we go back. They were talking about launching into the banking space, and that was definitely an issue. The company had claimed customer deposits of up to $250,000 would be insured by a nonprofit Securities Investor Protection Corporation. I'm just reading from this article, but it actually turned out that they only guaranteed funds for purchasing securities, and that was it. So that definitely would make people a little bit uncomfortable if there was an anticipation that you were being supported. Now, the reason why I bring up Coinbase, Binance, these guys are growing at an exponential rate right now. And I think we had talked about this before. Coinbase has extended. Now they're in 53 countries worldwide. That is pretty amazing. Now, they brought up here, and I'm trying to find it again, one of the countries that Coinbase opened up into and is making available. Here it is here. India. And I need to dig in a little bit further. It's a little bit old. I've been a little reticent on digging into this information, but if Coinbase is opening up and making digital asset trading available to people in India, and the government of India hasn't blocked it, that might be some good tidings for India. But Coinbase is making a huge run right now globally. And I think that that has a lot of significance, again, when we're talking about mainstream adoption. So that's pretty amazing. Now, where is it? Okay. So now let's take another jump here. So I just wanted to bring up a lot of interesting things that I found over the past week or so. Now, on the live stream on Saturday, let's see, let me block this. On my live stream Saturday, we talked about how Harvard their Harvard endowment took $12 million out of their $39 billion endowment, and they invested it into Blockstack, which Chip said, he's really enthused about Blockstack. I need to dig in a little bit more into that. But there was this report that came out on April 15th. I found this on Ethereum World News, and it said here that 94%, this is a study that was published on April 12th, that said that 94% of endowments surveyed. Okay, so maybe I misread this when I first read it. But 94% of endowments that they had surveyed reported having made crypto-related investments. And it said here that 50% of them reported an intention to increase their position over the next 12 months. Now, these are university endowments. So let me open this results page up. Let me see if it's on here. Let's see. Vast majority of endowment funds testing crypto investments. Let me see if there was a list here. I didn't click this link before. I should have clicked this before talking about it. Anyhow, I don't see a list. Doesn't say specifically, but the point being is that we're beginning to see mainstream adoption. So we have, D and I talking a lot about what's happening on the global front. ISDR, the ESDR that he's talking about, a trend to really look for digital assets as a reserve currency. On the mainstream front, we have organizations like Robinhood that offer trading for digital asset. Moving into the banking area, we have Coinbase that is expanding rapidly now in 53 countries, even opening into countries that have basically attempted to ban digital asset trading, India. Then we have the Harvard endowment investing in a digital asset company. And we have another study published that said that 94% of the endowments that they had polled are actually investing in digital assets and will double or increase their investments into the digital asset space within the next 12 months. So everything that we're seeing right now really speaks towards mainstream adoption. I think that's just super, super impressive. All right, where are we here? So, all right, 7:39. We got tons of stuff to cover here. Let's see. Miyagi, I can see a Bank of America exchange in the future. Yeah, Bank of America. Who was talking about TD America? Was that, or was it? Is it the TD America? Why am I blanking on it? I think it was Cryptopolis. Somebody else was talking about it. That Bitcoin was showing up on there, and that someone else was talking about Bitcoin popping up on NASDAQ recently. Let me see here. Popping up through the stream a little bit. I get caught into talking and then forget to Ameritrade, TD Ameritrade. There we go. Yep, TD Ameritrade. So yeah, so I need to look into that. I didn't go and see it firsthand. Cryptopolis had posted a picture. Auburn Rain, I'm not sure. Oh, you did? Okay. Oh, okay. Awesome. On the TD America trade posting of Bitcoin. Edward, that's another good point too, that you have Saudi and India opening up corridors. There's a lot of, let me put that up there. Here we go. Okay, so that's that. Annalise, thanks for that. Yeah, definitely a couple things, and as DNI talks about it, calls it housekeeping. Definitely thumbs up. You know, if you guys haven't subscribed yet, definitely subscribe. Throw it out on Twitter. If you know anybody else who has not yet subscribed to the channel, have them subscribe. That'd be great. Making some momentum. I had to get momentum. Had to get past a certain point. And it's interesting as you watch the subscribers add on and everything like that. It's kind of exciting. You know, as you know, you're kind of getting the word out. To me, what's most important is the community that's being built, because you know when we talked about the Token Taxonomy Act, and we wanted to get that initiative together, and you know, and Chip and I had been talking, and we said, you know what, you know, we got to get, sorry. So you know, Chip and I were saying, you know, we got to get some momentum going on the Token Taxonomy Act, and within a short period of time, we were able to pull together a video with you know, members from the community, video YouTubers, and that was awesome, you know. And then you saw others getting it out, the message out on Twitter, and continuously at it. And just on that note, it's not over yet. The battle, you know, we got through the first hurdle, which is awesome. Being able to get through the first hurdle, which is the fact that they actually got the Token Taxonomy Act in front of, they get the Token Taxonomy Act in front of the Financial Services Committee. That's step one, getting in front of Congress, which is awesome, you know. But it needs to get passed through committee. It has to get in front of Congress. Once it gets in front of Congress, we got to make sure that it goes from Congress to the Senate. So there's still a lot of grassroots effort that needs to be done, and that's the point of the community that's being built here, you know, because you have a grassroots effort. This is where it happens. You have all of us as early adopters in this technology, belief in digital assets, belief in what Ripple and RippleNet can bring, what XRP can do overall in the world of payments. And so there's so much that we're educating ourselves with every one of these live streams, with every video that we watch. And then we're able to then bring that to the community at large and keep welcoming new people in. It's like, look at, you know, there's a number of new people that are on my live stream tonight that came in because we're talking over on DNI's channel, or on, you know, Brad's channel, or, you know, watching videos with Oz or with Chip, or, you know, from Rain, or, you know, on Twitter. You know, wherever, you know, people are engaged in, it's absolutely outstanding. Dan, you know what, that's also the thing, is that, you know, we never, you know, once stopped and said, you know, what is one's political affiliation? So Johnny XRP, you talked about FUD, and you know, think about division, and I think this is really really important. You know, so, you know, when we think about division, and Dan, you know, you bring this up, Republicans and Democrats. If you go the way of the media, if we think about the media that has really spread nothing but negativity against Republicans, against Democrats, pitting Republicans and Democrats against each other to divide the people. And here, when we talk about finances, when we talk about economic well-being, it crosses all political lines. It is 100% nonpartisanship. Exactly. And that's the beauty of this, you know, is that, you know, we need to get everybody together. You know, we need to make sure that we're working as a cohesive unit. And the other great thing is that we've got people in here. We've got someone from Thailand in here. We've got somebody from Australia in here. I don't know where everyone's from other than that. You know, I know we have people that come in from the UK, from Ireland, you know, so it's not just about Democrat, Republican in the United States. We have a global community that's being formed, and that's what's so outstanding. You know, that's phenomenal to have a global community on the stage, you know, working together. So, all right. So where was I here? All right. So this is Philly. Coming in from Kansas. That's awesome. I want to see how many places, see if there's anyone in here from a place I haven't been to. Jersey, nice. Tweet the stream out, that'd be awesome. I don't think I've ever been to where XRP Minute's from. That's way too far. But anyhow, Boston, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna be in Boston in June. I've got a conference over there coming up. Vegas, nice. 45 minutes north. Man, that's just way too far away. Stuart, nice. And Stuart, you're not too far away. I'm gonna be up in Stuart H. Actually, Stuart, I put something in here that you posted for me. I'm gonna be where am I gonna be on Friday? Somewhere over in that area. I forget exactly. I think I'm gonna be in somewhere north of Sarasota. So anyhow, so Stuart, Cleveland. Man, I've been to Cleveland. I've been to way too many places, I think. Thailand. I haven't been to Thailand though. That's one place I haven't been to yet. Dude, I just ran out of water. Hey guys, I gotta jump up real quick. I ran out of water and my I have no one to give me water. Hang on a second. I forget who it is, but somebody was running a live stream, and they got up and left their live stream for like an hour or 2 hours, and everybody stayed on, and it's kind of funny. Yes, we want to get a meetup going, a Florida meetup. DNI, I think I've got the same chest cold that you got. Okay, so Stuart sent this over to me. Let me see if I can find this. This was interesting because I had brought up jobs that are fleeing from the United States at a rapid pace because of the lack of regulatory clarity. Let me see, where did I put this article? I know it's here somewhere. This was one of the last things I wanted to on my list here. Hang on, where'd it go? All right, I'm gonna open it again. So anyhow, Stuart, you sent this over to me. I think last week. I plan on talking about it. This is the one that won't open up. That's why I can't get it. It won't open. So anyhow, the article opened when I opened it on my phone. I can't open it on my computer. So anyhow, it talked about the fact that the U.S. is actually leading in blockchain growth, job growth. And it said here that the data suggests that the U.S. and China are caught up in a blockchain jobs arms race in terms of growth moving forward, especially as we're moving into the utility phase. So I thought that was really interesting. You know, I thought that was an interesting point to bring up, and I wish the article would open, and now it won't. So you're too close, Chip. And I got it traveling too. So I was in LA, Detroit, and somewhere in between the two, I got it. So, and I don't think I got it in LA, but you never know. I definitely started getting it when I was over in the Detroit area. So, DNI, I was just in Detroit last week. So I know we were talking about the other day. So, all right. Let's see here. We got 10 minutes to wrap up, and there's some great things to talk about yet. I was talking about the Coinbase thing. I pulled out a snippet here that I wanted to read real quick. Let me see here. Here it is. Okay, so let me move this window. See if I can move it. All right. It says here, and this was interesting. So this was on the Coinbase blog, and they were talking about their move as they're expanding to more countries. And this was specific. So they said, as crypto moves from the current investment phase into what we call the utility phase, a host of new use cases will present themselves. So this is coming right from the blog of Coinbase, and I believe that was a quote from the CEO, and I didn't write that down exactly who was from, but this could take the form of decentralized versions of traditional financial services like lending or micropayments, or truly novel crypto applications that no one's even thought of yet. The ability to convert from one crypto to another will form the backbone of this new decentralized economy. Now, I bring this up because I think it's interesting. A couple things. The fact that Coinbase is seeing and realizing that the market is now transitioning. They're investing huge amounts of money to expand globally into mainstream. And then now we see that, and so now we see Coinbase talking about that movement from investment to utility, and utility is going to really change the dynamics of this space completely. And we talk about, when is XRP going to start moving? When are we going to see that stability increase to the next level of stability? And it's going to come through utility. And so it's really, I saw they closed one of their divisions. And that could be a little bit of FUD also. I'm always a little skeptical. We need to look into their finances a little bit more, but I think they were also off on their projections in 2018 by about 60%. I could be wrong. There was an article I saw, but you got to read into that and to kind of sift through the data, because as we've seen with Forbes, the information they provide in their articles are typically wrought with incorrect information and misinformation. So here we have this movement. Now it says, and so these are the important things that we need to hone in on. This could take the form of decentralized version of traditional financial services like lending or micropayments. But then let's skip to the last part of this. The ability to convert from one crypto to another will form the backbone of a new decentralized economy. Now think about, you can think about Uphold, you can think about Coinbase. Uphold allows you to convert into a lot of different currencies, fiat and digital asset alike. However, if you go into XRP and you look at the backbone of XRP and the ILP, and so that the exchange is inherent and it's built in into the ledger already. So I think it's interesting if we think about it from that perspective, that if we look at XRP as a whole, the nature of the entire environment, there's so much more to it than just the digital asset. And again, it's already built in that exchange to any currency. It doesn't matter what it is already part of the fabric of that environment. So the fact that Coinbase is bringing that up, that ability is going to be the backbone, tells me that either they already know that or they're trying to talk about themselves as being it. But you know what? But the XRP environment already has that and can do that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. All right, so let me wrap this up. We got 5 minutes. I wanted to bring up one more important thing, before we round out the hour. So let me see here. Dividends are coming. Yeah, you can get dividends with Uphold. Dividends in terms of, there's a way that you can basically tie up your digital asset and they'll pay you a percentage for that. But it's Uphold using another service. We had talked about that one before. So this one, let me see if I can find where the article went. But this is important because this is a a precedent being set. This was a court case, and this article was on Cointelegraph. I don't know why my articles didn't open up in the right sequence here. Let me see. That one is Ripple Labs. Here it is. Okay, so this one is interesting. This was ATB. What is ATB? Let me remember. The article is interesting. Wasn't really thinking about the actual coin or the company. Let me see. ATB. Where is it? ATB coin. ATB was the defendant. What's the company? Does anybody know what ATB coins are? Let me browse through this real quick. Not here. So anyhow, I don't know. This was an interesting article though, because this was Monday. This article came out, and there's a federal class action suit, and the court actually decided and provided guidance that, or they were providing guidance on really how to determine whether or not a token might be a security, and they were focusing on the security laws. So they were discussing, and they went through, discussed a lot of the terminology that they were going to be used. But at the end of the day, the court ruled that ATB, in their ICO and their initial coin offering, was actually releasing a security. And so it goes through. It's an interesting article, actually. And the case started back in June of 2017. And then as you fast forward it through March, the price had, the case didn't start in 2017. The ICO was in 2017. By 2018, it came out that the company, it was ATB blockchain. So they launched the coin, they sold the coin as an ICO. They made a lot of promises about what they were going to develop under the ATB blockchain. So it's very reminiscent of what happened during the high-tech boom of the 90s, which we've talked about. People just throwing money at something because of the name. So it turned out that they couldn't do what they said they were going to do. So obviously there was a class action lawsuit. The ATB coin was devalued by about 85%. So a lot of people obviously lost a lot of money in it. And so then they brought a complaint against, so the complaint here, let me see, the plaintiff filed a complaint on December 21st alleging two claims against them. So this is interesting. So they said that the defendant offered and sold unregistered securities, and they also then brought the co-founders as persons of interest, as control persons of ATB. So they applied, in this case, they did apply the Howey test, and they found under the Howey test, there are really three criteria that they were looking for. They wanted first and foremost to look and see if there was an investment of money, which there was. They wanted to see if there was a common enterprise, which there was in that case, because they were selling the coin to fund the blockchain, and it was the blockchain that people were buying into with all the promises of what that blockchain could do. And then, so that was the common enterprise. And number three, there was an expectation of profit from the efforts of those who were running and developing, designing the blockchain. So here it says here, the third element of this standard encompasses both the third and fourth prongs of the traditional Howey test. And so you have investment of money, common enterprise, and expectation of profit predominantly from the efforts of others. So they went through and they ruled on it. And so I think there's still going to be a lot more discussion on that topic. Obviously, a lot of us, we go back and you think about, can XRP be caught up in that same kind of a process? But really, there's that separation in XRP. There's a clear separation between Ripple and what RippleNet is doing. and what the XRP digital asset token, people are buying XRP primarily because it has an actual use case, but Ripple isn't selling people XRP in order to then build out a technology that doesn't exist, in promises that people that are investing in the RippleNet software are going to then benefit as a direct result, which never happened, and there's no documentation that has happened, and so there's a very clear separation. The CEO of Binance has come out and was very clear that he didn't believe that XRP was a security. And we have obviously those within Ripple that have stated that. And the fact that we have no action really up until this point by the SEC taking any kind of claim in that direction, you know, in my opinion anyways, I feel very comfortable on it. So, but I just thought it was interesting to try to connect it, because the point of that article is, you know, is the SEC now going to be moving in a direction that they can operate under some precedent guidelines or guidance that's been set. So let me look through here real quick before we wrap up. Let me see. Sorry. Let's see. Yep, they lost 6 million in the Chicago office. Let's see here. Let me jump down a little bit. Stuart, a lot of these ICOs are going to end up being securities. Yep, and that's exactly, you know, the purpose. So ICOs are a clear distinction. If you're going to have an ICO, there's obviously an intent of circumventing the IPO. So the IPO process. So, you know, that definitely is a case. And Stuart says here again, this is why having waste, wind, and R3, etc. They're all important for XRP. That's right. So we see a lot of other utility of XRP, and you start seeing Coil, and you have the XRP tip bot and the XRP payments and R3, and there's a lot of other utility outside of. And the coin is used on RippleNet as well. Exactly. Hey, Anthony Luce, what's going on? Auburn, thank you very much. Yo, guys, this is an hour. Actually a little under an hour, because I got started, 2 minutes? So we got 2 more minutes. That's awesome. Then we can wrap up the hour. But anyhow, so this is Jeff with the HODL Report. For those of you guys that are joining and you didn't realize that, you thought you were on somebody else's stream. But send me a tweet, the HODL Report, at the HODL Report. You can reach out on Twitter. You can reply back to this video, any other video. If there's any specific topic of interest that you guys would like to discuss, let me know. That'd be awesome. You know, again, I appreciate you guys staying on late. You know, we're wrapping up here now at 11 o'clock. It's super late for me as well. Get up, try to get up early the next morning. And so that's it, guys. It's awesome. I really have appreciated everybody being on. For those of you that haven't been on before, if this is your first time on, again, welcome to the show. So DNI, thank you for leading us into a great evening. DNI on at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. We've got Chip on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 p.m. I'm jumping in on Mondays and Wednesdays, 10 p.m., Saturday mornings at 8 a.m., and I make some videos in between. Chip is throwing in some videos in between. A lot of great content creators on the stream tonight as well. Check them out. Auburn, thanks for joining in. All of you guys, thanks for coming on tonight. Look forward to seeing you on the next video. See you guys Saturday morning. DNI, Chip, Rain, all you guys. If you guys want to try to do something Friday evening, that would be awesome too. We can wrap something up, get a whole group conversation going on. That'd be phenomenal. Disney, I'm going to write that down. Let's talk about Disney on Saturday morning if you guys can join in. Who brought up Disney? I see Stuart, who just got bumped up here. Where'd it go? I lost it. Hang on. Disney. Bubba Shipes. Bubba Shipes, come on Saturday morning and we'll talk all about Disney. So that'll be interesting. I wrote that down. Awesome, guys. Annalise, thanks for coming on. Carolina, all you guys, awesome. Hey, until I see you guys next time, remember, keep on hodling your crypto.